Welcome to part 2 in the Empowering Leadership Model series. I will now show you how to apply the model by using a narrative as an example. The Empowering Leadership Model has been designed with specific relevance to the clinical environment. You will now be guided through an example which aims to add insight of the model and to summarize the model in narrative. The scenario involves an emergency children's unit called Emergency Unit 1, which does not have a current leadership model, and aspiring leaders are left to lead as they see fit, without any guide to assist. The model will be applied to demonstrate how leadership can be organized for effective results. You will also be provided with a visual summary of the model, which you can use to identify components of the model from the narrative. The scenario begins. As an aspiring leader, I realize that the nursing personnel at my unit are not acting in a uniform way. It causes myself, as an aspiring leader, to question why some nurses are delivering a poor quality of care, while a select few go above what is expected of them. I realize that expectations of behavior were not well communicated with staff on a regular basis. I also realize that we do not have a vision statement displayed in the unit. My unit manager said we had a vision statement a number of years ago that said something to the effect of, "We're a children's ward that delivers emergency medicine to children under 13 years of age." I decide that we need a statement that will focus our current and future efforts. We need a vision statement for our unit. The unit manager agrees and helps me set up a meeting with all the nurses on my shift because I want to include them in the vision formulation. I read up and decide the terminology surrounding vision statements could confuse my nursing staff. I decide to ask a question instead. At the beginning of the meeting, we all drink a cup of tea and eat a biscuit that I have provided to create a comfortable environment. I explain the meeting was called for because we do not get together to talk enough, and the manager and myself would like to formulate a new vision for the unit with their help. But first, we will enjoy our tea and talk a bit. I ask each nurse the same two questions. What are your personal and professional dreams, goals, or visions in life? The nurses appear reluctant, so I volunteer my answer first, emphasizing there is no right or wrong answer. I say that professionally I want to finish my studies and after that secure a post where I can remain clinically involved because I enjoy patient contact, but with a smaller number of patients on a more intense basis that require a higher level of responsibility. I would also like to be able to live out the knowledge and skills that I have acquired to my work environment. Dreaming really big, I'd like to do home visits as part of my job. Personally, I would like to buy a small house or flat and improve my culinary skills. The nurses smile and all volunteer answers, some with more depth and spontaneity than others. They tell me they'd like their children to be happy and successful when they grow up, and one nurse wants her son to go to university. Others want to learn a new language and move closer to home. Professionally, they all say they want more money. I ask if money is for personal gain and clarify that a professional goal linked to more money could be a promotion or bonus. They all agree they'd like to advance. Two nurses also say they want to study further to advance their careers and skills. I thank them for sharing their dreams with me. I explain that having dreams and a vision drives us to move forward and take actions that will actively help us reach our goals. One nurse, Maria, agrees by telling the group that this is true. She wanted more money so that she could afford for her daughter to go to nursing school next year. So she has been saving her money for working overtime for 5 years now. She thinks she will be able to afford to send her daughter for the 2 or 4 year training program next year. We conclude the meeting. In our next meeting, we talk casually about how the week has been, and I ask what they think we could write down as a vision to remind ourselves of what we do and so that other people they can also read what we do. Josephine says, "The nurses in this unit save lives." The entire group, myself included, agree and clap hands at her statement because it's catchy and makes us feel good about our work. I go on to explain that a vision is an almost out of reach statement about the perfect future or dream we wish to see for our unit. Our unit manager advises that our vision could be to deliver world class and life saving care to children under 13 years of age. Maria adds that she wants to be the best at saving lives. Some nurses look uncomfortable with the description. After some questioning, I establish the word world class is not well accepted. We change the final vision to Emergency Unit 1 has a vision to save the life of every child that enters our unit. Another nurse, Sarah, feels this is impossible to save the life of every child because some children are too ill to be nursed or resuscitated back to health. Some also have terminal illness. I reassure her that a vision or dream for the unit is about reaching for the moon. If we miss the moon, we will land among the stars, but if we only aim for the stars, we may miss that target and stay on the ground. She smiles at the analogy and admits that she, like Maria, wants to save as many lives as we can, but she does not know how we will accomplish this because the vision is not descriptive enough. I confirm that Maria makes a good point, and I explain this is why we need a mission, to explain how we will achieve the vision. The body language of the audience are showing me they are tired. I follow this by saying, we did a lot of deep thinking by establishing the vision today. I am proud of your input, and I look forward to displaying our vision in the unit. Josephine says she is happy everyone will be able to see the vision because it gives an identity to the people that work in the unit. She feels proud to be able to be a part of a life-saving team. Even though she realizes some children may pass away, we aim to save them all. I ask the team to think about a short sentence of how we can save lives for our next meeting. For now, we can enjoy a quick cup of tea with homemade brownies that Josephine baked for today's meeting. In our next meeting, I ask for some ideas around the mission. The answers vary between not knowing what to answer, thoughts of administering medication on time to all the children in the unit and providing a safe environment, for example, cot-side beds and hazardous substance and equipment being out of children's reach. Other thoughts include ensuring the environment is quiet, warm, and conducive to sleep. I praise their efforts and we explore a broad description which could encapsulate all of their ideas into one or two sentences. We formulate the final mission as Emergency Unit 1 has a mission to save the lives of children by delivering care that is fully effective, efficient, and life-saving to children under the age of 13 years that need medical help in our unit. I thank the team for being prepared with their answers. Now we can talk about specific goals or actions that we could perform to help to save lives. I share the hot chocolate I brought today as a special treat to thank the team for their effort and participation. I can see the team is not grasping why we need to go through this thinking process if we are already saving lives. I realize that the nurses have not yet linked the vision and mission to the work we do, and none of the other multidisciplinary team has said anything about it. I think this has demotivated the team, so I decide to ask our consultant his thoughts. He says he did not see the display and advises we print the vision and mission on a colored sheet of paper to make it more visible. He is pleased with our effort to write a vision and mission statement because he says it gives an identity to the unit and the people that work there. He says he will even refer his registrar doctors to it, and he also thinks it will help to guide the behavior of new and agency nursing staff in the unit. He says he will mention it in the next multidisciplinary team meeting to generate awareness and to praise the nursing staff for their effort in designing the vision and mission. The vision and mission is now well communicated. The consultant did as promised, but the nurses still do not seem convinced by the usefulness of the mission and vision. I realize that, according to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I am starting to be self-actualized by focusing on what I enjoy to do and do well. Most of my team are not yet on the esteem or self-actualized levels. I decide to focus on the why message instead. I thank the nursing staff for their input so far and share why it's important to the profession to establish the mission, vision, and goals and why they will benefit from it. I explain that it is a tool to help us prioritize our actions and it helps us to decline actions that will not add to our unit's vision or mission. And in this way, it also helps us prioritize our work and to decline direct involvement in actions that will not add to our unit's vision or mission. For example, having to hand out cupcakes that were donated to the unit may make the patients feel good and they might even like us more, but it takes away our time to focus on actions that save lives. For example, administering antibiotics or doing life-saving observations. I thank the nursing staff for their input so far and share why it's important to the profession to establish the mission, vision, and goals and why they will benefit from it. I explain that it is a tool to help us prioritize our actions and it helps us to decline actions that will not add to our unit's vision or mission. In this way, it also helps us prioritize our work and to decline direct involvement in actions that will not add to the unit's vision or mission. For example, helping to hand out cupcakes that were donated to the unit may make the patients feel good and they might even like us more, but it takes away our time to focus on actions that save lives. For example, administering antibiotics or doing vital signs, and it will probably increase the workload of our colleagues if we spend our time on non clinical work. The vision and mission also standardizes our actions and therefore makes us stress less. I explain by using an example. If a mother asks for antibiotics for the other baby who is sick at home, I decline her request because my mission says I save the lives of babies in this unit, and by sending medication home without assessing the child, I could cost the baby at home his or her life. I explained that our unit aims to save lives and therefore I advise her to take the sick baby to the nearest clinic. By prioritizing actions in such a way, job satisfaction will improve by focusing only on relevant actions and stress is reduced with less future consequences, such as adverse events. Work is also eased because actions were prioritized. For example, the emergency trolley was checked on the day when we were quiet, so that the day when we were busy we had to resuscitate all the equipment were in good working order and available. The workload is also shared because we all contribute towards the same goal, which is to save lives. For example, all the staff are checking the emergency trolley. The nurses agree that this is important. We now start to brainstorm possible ideas for our unit and we decide to make the goals SMART, which is specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time bound, based on our unit manager's recommendation. One of the goals we decide to focus on is to measure vital signs, including blood pressure, heart rate, respiratory rate, oxygen saturation, and temperature, within 30 minutes of the prescribed time to measure. Because we've had a number of children with delayed monitoring and of up to 2 hours, which led to worsened observations of respiratory distress at the time of monitoring and subsequent prolonged hospitalization. I ask if the vision, mission, and goals are understandable. Sarah says she does not understand the difference between efficient and effective. I explain that effectiveness is when actions lead to successful outcomes and efficiency is producing the result or success with the least amount of resources, time, and waste. Together, they ensure that actions are done to meet needs in the best way possible. Now that she understands the wording, Sarah takes great ownership of the mission. Now that the vision has been shaped and the team are all aware of these expectations, we can hold each other more accountable for our actions and we have standardized our acceptable performance levels. I also realize that the values the nurses display in their behavior are not the same, despite the vision. Some do not follow the professional values of nurses. I realize that I cannot even remember all the values, and I decide to read up on which values and accompanying behaviors are expected of nurses. After reading about the professional values, I reflect and realize that my behavior has also not supported all of the expected nursing values. At times it was because my personal values proved me otherwise, but mostly it was because I didn't know about values based care at all. I realize that I will need to change my attitude if I want to embody my professional values instead of my personal values. I think long and hard about vivid instances where I have acted opposite to what my profession expected and how it could have caused the public to lose faith in me and even the profession because of my behavior. I commit not to act counter to my profession again because I want to serve my patients and work in a pleasant working environment where positive relationships are maintained among colleagues as well. I also realize for the values to be credible, it needs to be realistic, real, and I need to share it with my team often. I realize that I never even ask my team about their values for the future. Before I ask about their values, I think I should ask them about their vision first. I also realize that our unit does not have a vision. I decide to share the values with my nursing team, and I start with a practical example by buying coffee, tea, milk, sugar, fruits, yogurt, and biscuits for a morning breakfast meeting that I set up with the unit manager's help because I want to remind the nurses how good it feels when values are a part of care. The nurses are very surprised at my elaborate gesture and ask why I'm spoiling them. First, I explain because I would like to get to know them, and snacks always bring people together. So I thought we could enjoy an informal meeting over some coffee, biscuits, and breakfast. They all look excited. The nurses talk and enjoy the snacks. Maria thanks me for sharing my resources with them by buying all of them a breakfast hamper. Once the excitement is settled, I explain that values help us live out our vision, our dreams, and by guiding our behavior. The vision, mission, and goals could cause me to do vital signs on a patient at the correct time, but the way that I approach the patient could leave the patient feeling awful if I was disrespected and treated her without dignity. I explained that this is what values are for. Values guide our behavior to be professionally acceptable. Nursing has a set of standards which determine what is acceptable for the profession and what is not acceptable. I demonstrate the values by the practical gesture of sharing food for the meeting with the team. I explain about my recent discovery and how it contextualized my own behavior and made me realize I have not always behaved as my profession expects and as I promised in the nurse's pledge when I entered the service. I then start the conversation by explaining some of the values with practical examples. By taking time to attend this meeting, we are creating a community of support which will ease collaboration, and the breakfast and beverages will refresh us and give us some energy until our lunchtime. I have demonstrated care for self as one of the personal values. My honesty in admitting my behavior was not value driven in the past shows my integrity as well as my sense of responsibility for my own actions. I proceed to share that my paying for the food and beverages show I put the welfare of my team above my own, showing altruism by sharing my resources with them. We talk about some of the other values, and the nurses thank me for the treat and tell me how good they feel. I suggest we should have weekly meetings, and they all agree. We will make turns to bring milk and sugar. Our unit manager says she will provide coffee once a week for 1 month. It looks to me that my unit manager has already bought into my example of leadership by offering to contribute. We will focus on one value every week before discussing other organizational matters. I suggest we can use case study discussions as it is less personal. Some of the nurses disagree, and I explain that if we talk about real examples, it cannot be to the shame of a nurse, colleague, or other colleague, and identify factors such as a description of the clothes worn or the patient's name should be omitted. If we discuss familiar situations, the information should stay between us as professionals to protect the confidentiality of our patients. This demonstrates the ethical principle of non-maleficence, which is to aim not to do harm. By the next week, I realized that unacceptable behavior is still displayed by the nursing team at times, and I think most nurses forgot the values and did not internalize the values shared with them yet. I decided to start the meeting by summarizing the professional values of nursing. Some nurses ask questions, and I encourage them to ask if something is unclear. We also point out examples in the group of exemplary nurses who have followed certain values, such as Maria that reported last week she picked up 200 rand in the ward. She is displaying her integrity. I also explained that the values were set up internationally, and I asked if they would like to challenge the values or add any values to make it locally relevant. They do not answer. I ask them which values are important to them, and one nurse, Josephine, answers accountability and responsibility because she does not want to be held liable if something goes wrong. That is why she refused to help during a resuscitation last week. I thank her for her honest answer, and we talk about the need for training and orientation around the emergency trolley and its equipment, and we touch on the different roles during resuscitation, such as record keeping, timekeeping, being a runner, airway management, and more. She appreciates the gestures but says because she is new to the unit, she still does not feel comfortable. I want to tell Josephine she should help as we're a team and she is employed to work in the emergency unit and it's a job. But I realize that when I stress values, I should evaluate values and not mere statistics or metrics. I want to ask my unit manager to help me all provide me with job descriptions for my team so that I can link values to their performance outputs and refer to these at the next evaluation. I will also need to meet with each member of the team so that we can discuss the expected values in relationship to the job description and key performance areas before I can evaluate their values. Thinking about the nurse who refuses to help in a recess, I realize that her refusal to help falls under the need for safety in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I ask myself how to address her fear and decide I should reassure her. I reassure her, but note that we will work together until she feels ready or is assessed to be ready to be involved in the resuscitation because we need her help. I have probed her to move from the need for safety to the need for social belonging in the workplace. I also considered Patricia Benner's model of skill acquisition and realized that the nurse is new to the environment and she has implied she is unsure how to behave and what to do. She is a novice and needs context-free rules to guide her actions. I help I reassure her and say she can help with timekeeping while she learns the other skills. It will also give her an opportunity to be exposed to the resuscitation environment. She agrees because she says the risk is very low to do something wrong and she feels comfortable keeping the time. I realize that Josephine is new to the environment, so it is unfair for me to pressurize her to assist with more intense resuscitation duties. So I only explain to her that we will leave her for timekeeping for now, but will review the situation at a later stage and help her to take on more responsibility. Sending Josephine for a pediatric life support also aids her skill acquisition, which will later on lead to further job enrichment. I am so excited of our progress so far. I also feel the team better understands Josephine, the nurse who does not want to be involved in a resuscitation, because she shared her fears when she was provided with a safe environment for sharing. For the next meeting, I plan to do a role play or describe a real scenario, followed by a debate about the positive and negative aspects. We can also talk about how it made each person feel and what they would change in the scenario. This is a form of assisted reflection. I could also teach a constitution to discourage human rights violations and teach values and ethics. Now that the team is aware of my and my profession's values, I realize they will watch me closely for congruence between my stated values and my actions. As the week goes, I emphasize my actions by referring to professional values. After a few more meetings, the nurses say they understand the values and how it can be helpful, even in building relationships, because it causes us to all act in a predictable and similar way. They are so excited about the values that they suggested a wall of values. I continue by advising that we list the values and write examples of how each of us are living out our values on a weekly basis. The nurses agree and say that we can also write compliments to each other in this regard. Josephine wants pictures of all the staff on the wall of compliments. I say it's a wonderful idea and realize she's starting to seek social belonging. I assign her to get the photos of each person. I explain that our ward clerk can print the pictures, but that she should get the pictures. She asked all the nurses to WhatsApp her a picture of themselves. Josephine has now got all the nurses' numbers on her telephone. She feels very impressed that they shared their pictures with her, and she now sends them occasional messages on WhatsApp. She says she is starting to feel a part of the unit. I ask her to bring me the printed pictures once she is done, and she says the clerk promised to help her this afternoon. I praise her for her effort. The notice board values with the pictures work well, and the nurses tell me it has made them feel good about themselves because they felt that before the board of compliments was started, all they ever heard were complaints about mistakes that they made. Some of the multidisciplinary team have also said how the nurses seem to be a better team and are more pleasant to work with now. I realize that the visual reminder and the constant emphasis on value-based actions and care and congruence in my behaviors as the leader have boosted the morale in the ward. I also feel good about this. I think it's time to move from value-based care to clinical competence for our next meeting. I realize that for my team to believe that what I help to envision is doable is for them to follow me. I need to lead by example. I continue to offer a high work ethic in the unit and to share my knowledge and skill with my team whenever I can. I display confidence in my ability to think critically and to make decisions based on my reasoning skills. For example, The pharmacy is closed and the doctor has prescribed a course of antibiotics for the baby to be discharged home with. I reason that, although outside my scope of practice, I feel comfortable to identify the correct antibiotic, mix the antibiotic powder with water correctly, and to label it correctly. The mother stays close to the hospital, so I explain that the bottle will not be enough for all the doses, but she should return tomorrow with the bottle to me and I will direct her to the pharmacy who will issue her with more antibiotics. By doing this, the baby can start his antibiotics immediately. The pharmacy will be able to check my dispensed antibiotic and issue the mom with the difference, and I have displayed a commitment to go above what is expected by showing altruism to care for the baby's well-being above my own rights. I also use my clinical competence to share information and skills on a day-to-day basis, and I plan to mentor Josephine to become competent and comfortable during resuscitation. Communication methods, including applying emotional intelligence to conversations, have been described in the preceding examples. Additionally, I set time aside during lunch to get to know my colleagues. Once a week, I schedule lunch with one member of the nursing team and I buy lunch for them as an incentive. Today I met with Maria, who told me how proud she is of her daughter who wants to become a nurse just like she is. She continues to tell me that this is part of what motivates her to want to be the best because she wants to be a good role model for her daughter. I also tell Maria about my family and about my parents who are my role models. We realize we have more in common than we realized, even though we have a significant age difference. At the end of our lunch, I encourage Maria to think about ways she would like me to assist her, or if she has any questions for me, because I know we may perceive needs differently and I do not ignorantly want to assume her needs. She agrees, and I hope she will have some ideas of what we could work on together as I mentor her towards the upcoming promotions that I know she will be the ideal candidate for. Or maybe I can just answer the question she raises me. I will have to wait and see what she says. As much as I enjoy the individual contact with my colleagues, I also realize that we are a team and that I should invest in the team dynamic as well. I hear some of the nurses talking about a surprise birthday party for a colleague and I offer to help. They're ecstatic and ask me to make the peppermint crisp tart. I agree. I realize that a sense of community is an important value to my colleagues and I commit to support this value where possible with my actions. This helps to create a pleasant working environment and builds loyalty and trust. I can see that Josephine is part of the community, but in the early stages, and I start thinking of ways to make her feel more included. At our next meeting, we open by each nurse sharing a compliment to the nurse on her right. The receivers giggle shyly as they receive their compliments. After the icebreaker, we talk about funny stories of the past week and share experiences so we can socialize and build loyalty and trust in one another through openly sharing. I also ask I also thank the nurses for their hard work over the last week so that they can feel appreciated. Josephine has agreed that I can mentor her, and for 3 days she observed me checking the emergency equipment and asked me questions about the use of the equipment. I also explain procedures to her as we go, and today she will check the trolley and I will assist when she asks. She says she feels more involved and engaged than before because at first she did not know the equipment's functions or names. I encourage her to continue checking the trolley and I plan to show her on a doll next week how to use the equipment. She still looks a little nervous around real emergencies, so I do not allocate her to take the lead just yet. She has progressed from timekeeper only to timekeeper and note taker. While working with Josephine in the ward, I notice she is the only nurse who gets a blood pressure reading on chubby infants on her first attempt. Realizing she feels self-conscious about her discomfort around emergencies while she works in an emergency ward, I praise her for her skills and ask her to share some tips with me. After she explains how she matches the anatomical position of the artery in the infant to the artery indicator on the blood pressure cuff while keeping the baby calm, I tell her that she is very good with this and I encourage her to demonstrate her technique to Maria. Maria is also impressed. I encourage Josephine to teach more students and staff and I explain the importance of blood pressure readings in determining hypovolemia, renal problems, and even estimated neurological influences due to high intracranial pressure. Later in the day, I see Josephine is busy demonstrating her technique to a new student nurse who just started today. I can see that her peer teaching skills have given her confidence to influence others to take blood pressure readings correctly. Josephine is transforming into a leader in own right. This makes me very happy because I know I helped to empower her. I excitedly share with my manager how Josephine is starting to show signs of good leadership. I thank my manager for creating an opportunity for me to lead and for enabling me by granting me time in the weekly meetings to provide and for her providing coffee for our meetings. This has helped me be a better leader. I also thank her for her duties to the ward, especially for ensuring we have adequate physical and human resources to live out our vision. She smiles and thanks me for implementing my leadership model because she says she can see how the model has helped to structure leadership and how it has been effective. She also tells me absenteeism has reduced by 4% and she is pleased with this. She also says the Human Resource Department has complimented her on the lower rate. She told them it's because of the new leadership model which I implemented. I also feel empowered and fully self-actualized. I enjoy my work and the feedback I have received from my manager and observed firsthand shows me I have made a difference. I now want to teach more nurses to be good leaders. You will now see the references. Because this video did not use in-text referencing, some of the sources are also not in the reference list according to APA style citation, and they are first listed before the complete reference list is provided after that. I would like to extend my gratitude to the Master of all creativity for helping me. Also to my family, Bernard, Marinda, Yeshua, Anal, Michaela, for all they've done for me, to the University of Cape Town and Associate Professor Una Kyriakis for the opportunity to acquire knowledge about leadership and for helping to shape my thinking, to my Tiger Book Hospital family for teaching me about leadership and discussing the topic with me at length, and also to you for listening and watching. I hope this video inspired you. This concludes part 2 and the Empowerment Leadership Model series. Thank you for watching with me. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did making it, and goodbye until the next series begins.